Hello everyone, this is part 10 of What If Naruto Was Neglected and Escapes to Kumo, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Hanzo the Salamander. After nearly a full week of bliss with Hikari and his girls, Naruto was called to Ai's office. I told Naruto that it was time to get his game face on because the AM delegation would be arriving tomorrow. Naruto had sorted through his feelings on the situation, and he decided to resign himself to his fate. He would just be himself, and if things worked out then that would be just fine. The council had already amended the CRA, and he was the official first member of Kumo's CRA, which was pretty much the polygamy policy of the Uzumaki clan with no limits. The next day came quickly, and Naruto found himself waiting at the front gate alongside Ai, Kushina, Samui, Mabui and the Kumo council. They saw the delegation from a way out. Ai had everyone staged and ready for a proper greeting. Naruto noticed Hanzo right away. He was a big man, about 6 foot 1 inch with broad shoulders. His Omegacore cage cloak was a royal blue with white raindrops on it. His gait was powerful, and his aura was fierce, even for the intrepid Hanyu. Hanzo was walking in front of a horse-drawn carriage that looked fit for nobility that also bore the crests of Am. As the delegation came to a halt, I greeted them. Welcome to Kumogakure, Hanzo Hattori, Maria Hattori and Amy Hattori. We hope that your journey through our lands was pleasant. Hanzo grunted. Thank you, Reikage Dono, it was a long walk. I must say, Kaminari no Kuni is much more impressive than I remembered. I actually smiled at the compliment. Yeah, we have Lady Sheena to thank for that. So, could we treat you to some lunch after the long journey? That would be appreciated. Might I bring my family? Hanzo answered politely. That was the plan. Lady Sheena wished to host a lunch at the Maki clan compound. I informed him, and the older, yet still powerful, figure cracked a smile. 30 minutes later, Hanzo, Maria, Amy and Nagato were seated around the family table at the Maki clan compound with Ai and the Maki family. They made small talk while the food was out. Hanzo really enjoyed the crab from Azushio along with other delicacies that were not available in Am. As with all things, eventually it was time to get down to business. So, Hanzo, might as well address the elephant in the room. Your daughter Amy wishes to be engaged to Ruto because Ruto beat her in combat after the right of conquest was issued. Does that about sum it up? Sheena asked, always straight to the point. Hanzo grunted. That about sums it up. I have my reservations, but there is no father that can deny his daughter. Sheena turned her gaze upon the blushing girl. Amy, as Ruto's mother, I would like to know why you are so insistent on marrying Ruto. Clan customs are great and all, but I do not consider them a valid reason to marry a foreign shinobi. Amy blushed and looked down at the remnants of her food. She steeled her resolve before meeting Sheena's gaze. Lady Sheena, Ruto is a great guy with a gentle heart. Underneath all of that yummy muscle is a pure soul that cares for those he loves while sparing absolutely nothing for those that stands against him. He is a true leader and I believe him to be a man worthy of my heart. Sheena hummed as she thought the girl's answer over. Eventually, she asked, and you got all of that from a couple interactions and a fight? Amy's eyes hardened and her resolve firmed. Lady Sheena, surely a warrior of your caliber knows that you can have a conversation with an exchange of fists. To be blunt, it is not hard to tell the quality of your son, especially when he gives you a glimpse of his true self. Sheena smiled genuinely and returned her gaze to Maria and Hanzo. Well, I'm sold. Now, it is my duty to inform you that my son was recently, and forcibly I may add, placed under the Clan Restoration Act of Kumo. The law follows old Uzumaki tradition and lays out ground rules for it. To my consternation, the council did not place an upper limit, but the control of choice rests with him and his fiancées or current wives. Hanzo frowned at that, but Maria remained undeterred. What makes your son so special that they would go to such lengths for him? I stepped in to back up Sheena. Hanzo, do you know of the origins of the Maki clan? Hanzo nodded briefly, showing that he could put two and two together. Okay, So as part of my agreement with Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, I agreed to help rebuild Azuchiogakure. In order to garner my early support, Kushina promised that Naruto would remain in Kumo. I waived that condition since she has done so much for Kaminari no Kuni, but Naruto has his sights set on being the godlike Raikage of Kumo. I would add that he already has the full support of the people and I have announced him as my successor. On top of that, Naruto possesses a Kekai tutor for storm release, which Kumo wishes to propagate. Hanzo raised an eyebrow at this. Kekai tutor, a three-element bloodline. There have been less than a handful doented throughout shinobi history. Naruto entered the conversation here. Hanzo Jiji, since we are being honest, I wish to discuss something with you and Amy. Before I do, I need you to sign an Uzumaki blood contract stating that you will not disclose this information. Is that necessary? You have shared a number of your secrets already. Hanzo asked, now genuinely curious. Naruto's look was deadly serious. Yes, it is that serious. Only the Raikage and the Divine Bolts know this secret and I am hesitant to spread it further. Very well, I will trust you on one condition. Naruto gave him a nod that told him to spill it already. I wish for a spar with you to test your strength. If my daughter is to share you, I wish to take my own measure of the man that she will give her heart to. I accept. Naruto spoke up before the Raikage could reasonably object. Naruto then whipped out a quill and some ink to write up the contract and seal. He placed his bloody handprint on the bottom of the paper and pushed it to Hanzo. Hanzo read the agreement and did the same, which made the seal glow blue. Naruto took a deep breath before he began. Okay, Hanzo Jiji, welcome to the inner fold. As my mother made clear, I am Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. That might have been easy enough for a man of your stature to figure out. Naruto paused here and undid his transformation. 2 blonde ears and 3 blonde, white-tipped tails filled Hanzo's vision. What is not so obvious is what happened to me on the night of my sealing. My father signed a contract promising me as the future mate of the Kyuubi. Due to my proximity to her in gestation and her residing in my body, I have transitioned into a Hanyu. I will tell you the Q is a wonderful and honorable woman that has my complete trust. Along with her, I have love for Samui and Mabui as well as my family. It may not be your typical love, but my mother asked me to father the new generation of the Uzumaki clan that will reside on Azu. That is all. 3 jaws were on the table for different reasons. Hanzo had literally never heard of a Hanyu Jinchuriki or anybody mating with a Biju. Maria was wondering how this man would be able to provide for so many kids in the future, then she thought about how many grandkids by proxy she would have. Amy just wanted to touch Naruto's ears and wrap herself in his tails. The Makis let the group process their thoughts and an awkward silence settled over the table for 5 minutes or so. Naruto-san, you are telling me that you are no longer human, is that correct? Hanzo asked. I kind of ride the line, if I understand it right. I can still procreate, and my kids will be stronger than normal. Until I have a kid, I don't know if there will be any complications. To be straightforward, I am half human, half demon. Demon doesn't mean evil, it means a race of increased power and longevity that originate from Makai, a sort of parallel world to ours. Maria decided to ask the next question. Will your children have increased longevity or demonic traits? Naruto shrugged. Maria-sama, I honestly couldn't tell you. We are in uncharted territory. Never before has a Biju selected a human as its mate. Never before has a Hanyu been made from a baby born of 2 humans. Tsunade Bachan doesn't even know. Can I touch them? Amy asked, blushing and incredibly shy. It also served to break the tension in the room. After the petting session, Naruto answered a slew of questions and it eventually turned into a proper family dinner. The treaty was de facto agreed upon that night, but Hanzo would still have to jump through the proper hoops. The Hatoris ended up staying in the Maki guest house and enjoyed the lively atmosphere that came with it. Amy spent just as much time with the girls as she did with Naruto. Hanzo spent time training with Naruto and evaluating him as a potential son-in-law. Nagato spent time bonding with every member of the Uzumaki family and agreed to play Am's ambassador to Kumo and Azuchiogakure. Hanzo was happy to have a new ally, especially one as powerful as Kumo. He agreed to have a Kumo survey group visit Am and see if they could institute some of the reforms that brought prosperity to Kumo. The treaty was signed 2 days after Hanzo arrived in Kumo, and the engagement of Hanzo's daughter and Ruto Maki was announced to the public. There was an article put out in the Kumo Times telling girls not to despair because Ruto was inducted in the CRA of Kumo. Kushina raged when she saw the front page of the newspaper with her son and Amy's picture, accompanied by the announcement of Ruto being in the CRA. She raged because it meant another round of engagement proposals to her son, as if he didn't have enough on his plate already. On the second page, the exhibition match between Hanzo and Ruto was announced. How a friendly spar got escalated to an exhibition match was unknown, but it meant pain for Ruto. On Hanzo's 5th day in Kumo, Ruto and Hanzo were standing across from each other in Kumo's stadium with Ai acting as the proctor. Both fighters agreed not to destroy too much of the arena, but that didn't stop Shina from setting up multiple protective barriers. Now, amongst the squeals of fangirls, the cheers of the crowd and the prayers of the Makis, I was laying out the ground rules for the match. I initiated the fight and jumped out of the way. Alright, kid, show me what you got. Shall we start with taijutsu? Hanzo asked cordially. Ruto shrugged before deactivating his weight and resistance seals. He shook himself out for a minute before locking eyes with Hanzo. Hanzo was in his battle regalia, which meant he was wearing his rebreather mask. Ruto really didn't want to face the poison of the boss salamander, but it may actually come to that. With a nod of his head, Ruto dashed at Hanzo. The old man was surprisingly spry for his age, and the fast-paced taijutsu battle started. Ruto was trying everything in his arsenal to land a hit on Hanzo: feints, counters, overwhelming speed and force, but it was to no avail. The man wasn't hailed as the strongest of his generation for no reason. Hanzo remained on the defensive, surprised to realize that the kid was pushing him. Maybe it was his old age. No, Hanzo was still a monster, and he was demonstrating why. It was just that his opponent was on the verge of maturing into a fully grown monster of his own. The haze of battle crept into Hanzo's eyes, his smile was hidden by his rebreather, and his blood was truly starting to pump for the first time since his fight against Yahiko, Conan and Nagato. After 8 minutes of back-to-back-to-back blocks and counters, Ruto opened up the floodgates and spawned a shadow clone behind Hanzo that landed the first real blow of the match. The clone's jumping roundhouse kick caught Hanzo by surprise, and he ate the blow to the back. He was surprised by the sheer force contained in the kick, but he was able to right himself after skidding off the ground just once. He continued to skid back on his feet for another 10 meters, but now it was on. Ruto saw Hanzo unsheath a yari, a Japanese-style spear, but the spearhead was nearly 3 feet in length. Hanzo spun the weapon around his body with the grace and practice of a seasoned warrior. Ruto answered by unsheathing Heaven's Blessing, and charging the blade with wind chakra. Hanzo answered by encasing his yari with an absurd amount of wind chakra, which made the business end of the weapon nearly 5 feet long. This is where Ruto needed to gain a win. If it came to strictly ninjutsu, then Hanzo's battle prowess would truly shine. Ruto blurred forward and a kenjutsu fight began. Once again, Hanzo was pleasantly surprised by the boy's prowess. The weight behind each blow was staggering, and the fluidity of the blows left minimal room for counter-attacks. Ruto began with a bone-crushing horizontal slash that Hanzo met with the blade of the yari. The wind chakras grinded into each other and emitted gale force winds with each impact. Ruto transitioned from the blocked horizontal strike by spinning rapidly and creating a whirlwind of mostly horizontal strikes that came from a variety of upward and downward angles. Hanzo repeatedly blocked these, and during the milliseconds in between strikes, he lashed out with the butt of the yari and landed a painful blow to Ruto's chest. Ruto went skidding back from the blow and found himself dodging or parrying stabbing thrusts from the yai before Hanzo performed a whirlwind attack of his own that Ruto blocked. The strike was so strong that metal met metal through the wind casings. The amount of wind chakra expelled actually blew each compore back, and the battle fell into a temporary standstill. Very good, Ruto-san, very good indeed. What was that opening attack you used there? Hanzo's battle-crazed voice echoed across the stadium. Thanks Hanzo Gi. That was, Barbarian's Tide, horizontal tide into a whirlpool dance. I adapted the, whirlpool's edge, to fit my greatsword here. Ah, yes, where did you get such a weapon? It is truly fearsome in the hands of someone with such strength and speed. My eagle summons hail from the west. This was a common weapon amongst their ancient warriors, and this baby is called Heaven's Blessing. Ruto-K, the sword, which drew laughter from the crowd. Impressive indeed. Such a sword with wind chakra is a mighty weapon. Care for a battle of katanas? Hanzo challenged. Without a second thought, Ruto latched his greatsword onto his back and unclicked the safety latch of his katana. Hanzo adopted an open blade, counter style of kenjutsu. Never one to wait for an invitation, Ruto bent his knees and almost fell into a runner's stance. Ruto disappeared from sight before a mighty clang rang out. Before the audience knew what happened, Ruto was resheathing his blade behind Hanzo. Hanzo's katana was severed down the center of the blade and the severed tip fell to the ground, much to his shock. It was also the first blood strike that led to Ruto's whooping. Hanzo couldn't believe what he just saw. Kenjutsu was not his best art, but he had never been bested, much less in a single strike. He looked down to the cut oozing fresh blood on his left arm and started laughing maniacally. He dropped his katana and began forming seals. When Ruto felt the chakra spike, he knew it was on. A deluge of stone was arcing over his position at a rapid pace from Hanzo's Doton, Earth Wave, Jutsu. He flipped through seals before he sent a lightning dragon to penetrate through the tidal wave of Earth. Ruto sprinted after his dragon and followed the path it tore into the Earth Jutsu. Hanzo saw the dragon's head and prepared himself. As soon as Ruto exited the earthen tunnel, a foot met his face, and he was flung onto the back end of the earthen tidal wave. While skidding on his back, Ruto flipped through a couple seals and took a deep breath before he thought, Suten, pressure stream. A thin, sustained beam of pressurized water headed straight for Hanzo as Ruto continued his impromptu ride. Hanzo flipped to the bird seal and used successive, futon, vacuum bullets to negate Ruto's attack. At this point, the crowd was going nuts for the display of prowess. They were so hyped up that most people forgot this was supposed to be a friendly spar. The girls didn't appreciate how far this was being taken and they were scared it was going to get out of hand. Amy was awed by the display and just a little upset that Ruto was holding back on her so much during their fight. Nagato Oji, doesn't it look like father is actually trying? Nagato nodded as his violet eyes took in every frame of the fight. Indeed, he is. Other than his summon, he is not holding back. Maria looked to Nagato. You don't think he would bring all Sal out here, do you? Nagato found the trepidation in her voice kind of funny. Ha, he might. I can see the look in his eyes from here. He is enjoying this too much. Amy looked aghast at the battlefield where her now official fiancé was fighting her father. Mama, he wouldn't kill Ruto-kun, would he? No, sweetie. I don't think he would. This earned an aghast look from Amy and another chuckle from Nagato. Back on the battlefield, the two had been trading jutsu and taijutsu for the past 5 minutes. Each jutsu escalated the fight and Shina now had both hands on the barrier to reinforce it with chakra. Hanzo had just jumped back to gain distance and he had a bulge in his cheeks and stomach before he called out, salamander style, corrupted fog. A great cloud of deep purple poison began to fill the stadium and it earned gasps from the crowd. Ruto's eyes widened to comical proportions before he focused and called up a massive amount of lightning chakra to take form around him. Through the purple fog, the audience heard the familiar call of their Raikage's lightning armor. The next thing they knew, Hanzo was driven into the stadium wall by a Raiten lightning lariat. The old salamander coughed out some blood into his rebreather before headbutting the younger opponent to get some space. Ruto reeled back, which allowed Hanzo the opportunity to mule kick him in the chest and send him flying back into the fog. Hanzo knew how terrifying the lightning armor jutsu was, so it was time to call out his old friend. He took some of the recently coughed up blood and smeared it on his right palm before flipping through some hand signs. Out of the poison cloud, a giant salamander that practically filled the stadium emerged. Ruto had recovered himself from the powerful kick, but during the brief lapse in his lightning armor he had inhaled some of the corrupted fog. His vision was swimming, and he was on the verge of collapse already. It was a truly terrifying poison. Deciding to go out with a bang, Ruto channeled some yokai to clear the poison out of his system, enough to focus on the jutsu he needed to form. Ruto formed a storm ball in his hands as the giant salamander rose up in front of him. Knowing that this was the last hurrah of this fight, Ruto let the storm ball fly. Hanzo and Sal sensed the potent jutsu heading their way and Sal lashed out with his tail to bat away the oncoming jutsu. The giant salamander boss was in for quite a shock. The storm ball burrowed into Sal's tail before detonating into a storm cloud. The brilliant blue and black bolts of lightning coursed throughout the giant salamander's body, and it even jolted Hanzo from his perch. The salamander's tail was completely engulfed in the explosion and dissolved due to the potent jutsu. The damage caused Sal to disappear back to his summon realm and left the shocked Hanzo to fall nearly 200 feet to the ground. The shock to Hanzo caused the corrupted fog to disperse and showed the crowd Ruto's unconscious form with Hanzo down on one knee. The crowd gasped as they took in the downed forms. I and Sheena ran to Hanzo. I took a vial he was holding before Sheena began ripping into him. I left the shouting woman to go to the downed form of Ruto. He lifted Ruto's head up and administered the antidote. I called the match in Hanzo's favor and Hanzo stood to address the crowd. People of Kumo, I apologize for letting this spar get just a bit out of hand. Laughter rang through the audience. Nearly 35 years ago I fought against a team from Konoha that gave me a good fight in a megacore. What most of you don't know that is 12 years ago is I fought against 3 orphans. Both of those fights I commemorated my opponent's strength by giving them les. In honor of this young man, the first young man to ever forcibly dispel all, Sal, I want to give him a le. To the fiancé of my daughter, I grant him the le, Tenshi no Raijin, named after the god of lightning, in honor of that amazing storm jutsu he used. In the audience, Tsunade beamed at her downed brat with pride in her eyes. Internally, she convinced herself that Hanzo was much stronger when the 3 Sannin fought him, but she was still proud of her brat. The people of Kumo considered this a great honor after such an amazing display. Ruto's girls could care less, they just wanted to see him back on his feet and Archoi was crying passionate tears of flaming passion. Ruto recovered without much incident after the antidote kicked in and joined Hanzo at the compound. Turns out that when you fight with a man like Hanzo, drinks follow said fight. Hanzo did everything he could to get the kid drunk, but it wasn't until Naruto convinced Hikari to show him how to shut off his immunity that it was even a contest. Naruto laughed raucously as Amy hid her head in her hands, full of shame due to the drunk Hanzo telling old war stories. The slurred stories kept Naruto and the others entertained well into the night. Hanzo left to head back to a megacore 2 days later and left Amy in Ruto's care. Amy learned quickly how to fit into the rowdy house of Makis or Uzumakis or whatever they are called. She was insanely jealous of Samui and Mabui sleeping in the same room as Naruto, but she accepted that all good things come with time. Indeed, they did come in time for the kunoiki, and she never regretted her decision. I had a lot of fun with this fight, and I realized that Naruto didn't use his full arsenal. That being said, the Kekai tutor of Storm release would have been lethal and he was fighting against his fiancé's father, so please take it with a grain of salt. Plus, it's Hanzo the Friken Salamander. Konoha, Uchiha compound. The prince of the Uchiha clan was in a foul mood. Yes, a foul mood. Uchihas don't get depressed, Uchihas don't cry, Uchihas aren't like the rest of those sniveling whiners. However, if Sasuke saw a qualified psychiatrist for once in his life, they would say that he was clinically depressed, and for a good reason. For the past couple months, Sasuke has continued to push down his emotions in order to live up to his father's expectations. Each time the memory of his mother and sisters surfaced, he forced it down with sheer rage. Suddenly, 4 ninjas wearing the Oto uniforms appeared around the Uchiha. Sasuke saw them and smirked, thinking that he could easily take these intruders and force them to tell where Orochimaru was. He took a battle-ready stance, but the blue-haired one decided to speak. All right, kid, Orochimaru sent us here to collect you. Are you going to come willingly? The blue-haired kunoiki said. Where is Orochimaru? I need to kill the snake bastard and avenge my clan. Sasuke snarled. A creepy ninja that was slightly hunchbacked spoke. Will you look at this kid? He thinks he can kill Orochimaru-sama, what a joke. Another voice came from the hunchback's back. Can you believe it, Saken? This silly wickle genin thinks he can do anything to our master, pathetic. Sasuke flared his chakra and darted forward. He engaged in hand-to-hand combat with the blue kunoiki. She repelled his attacks easily and stabbed him in the arm with a pink crystal. Sasuke jumped back and launched a mythical fire flower jutsu at the group of shinobi. They scattered. Gurren, we are drawing too much attention, we need to grab him and get out of here. One of them said. Sasuke noted he was the fat one. Shut up, fatty. Don't say my damn name in this pathetic village. The now known Gurren said. At that time, the 4 Oto shinobi were surrounded by Root and Anbu forces. They cursed as they realized their predicament. Fugaku stepped forward from behind some of his forces. You have 2 options, Oto Nin. You will submit yourselves for interrogation, or you will die here today. Fugaku snarled at the group. Leave it to that arrogant snake to think I would just let him take my son. I will get my revenge. The Oto group exchanged looks and attempted to escape. They used Shunshin in various directions and tried to make a break for it. The Anbu forces divided up and gave chase. The chase lasted for 30 minutes, and it resulted with 1 dead and 2 subdued Oto ninja. Unfortunately, the kunoichi with blue hair escaped, which enraged Fugaku, and he took it out on his new captives. After Hanzo left and Amy got settled into the Maki compound, Naruto was called to Ai's office. In his office, Ai and his mother told him that he was to become the emissary to Wave Country on behalf of Uzushiogakure and Kumo. Since Wave is now linked to the Land of Fire, they each worried about what would happen to Wave once it was discovered to be an ally of the 2 nations. They told Naruto to take Rias and return to Wave to form recommendations for defense improvement and seal application. They each gave Naruto a scroll on behalf of Kumo and Uzushio to deliver to Tsunami. 2 days later, Ruto and Rias landed in Wave where they were welcomed with open arms. The people of Wave offered a variety of fish snacks to Virginia, remembering her as the summon of their hero. Virginia accepted the snacks greedily and Ruto let her enjoy the impromptu feast as he walked to Tsunami's house alongside Rias. Ruto smiled beneath his mask at Rias' enthusiasm and excitement as they made the walk. The girl had taken a while to recover from her traumatic experience with Gato and it was refreshing to know that the chakra dyed, sun-kissed blonde hair signified Rias turning over a new leaf in her life. The duo made it to the first step on Tsunami's porch when a blur rocketed from somewhere in the yard and tackled Ruto to the ground, which Ruto let happen for fear of the boy hurting himself. Ruto rolled on the ground with an excited Inari and played with him for a couple minutes. The boy was completely different from the downtrodden boy that Ruto met in the Raikage's office, and it brought a sincere joy to his heart. Rias watched the display of childish rehousing alongside Tsunami from the porch, each woman wearing a massive smile on her face. Ruto-kun, why don't you collect that little mudball there and rinse him off in the ocean for me before you come inside? Tsunami called out melodically as she leaned against a support beam on the porch. Sure thing, Tsunami-chan. Ruto answered as he tossed Inari into a particularly muddy spot in the yard before scooping the giggling boy into his arms and dashing toward the ocean. The 2 ladies watched wistfully as Ruto carried the squirming child and jumped high into the sky before doing a can opener into the ocean. Seconds later, Inari squealed happily as Ruto washed the mud off of himself and the growing child. Rias noted the look on Tsunami's face and couldn't help but harbor similar feelings. He is quite the guy, eh? Tsunami dono? Rias asked in an insinuating tone. Tsunami's crossed arms tightened a smidgen as she reflexively stiffened at being caught. She relented and sighed, yes, Rias-chan, and no need for the honorifics. Ruto-kun is quite the man and watching how he played with Inari, well it would be enough to make any widow give into wishful thinking. Rias smirked, oh, I don't know about wishful. If you ask me, I think it is more than realistic. He won't drop everything and move here, but if you're okay with an absentee father with multiple future wives and lovers that is on a quest to change the world then I think he is just the guy you're looking for. Tsunami spit out the sip of tea that just reached her lips before squealing, Rias-chan. He, sorry, I couldn't stop myself. He has that particular affect on the women in his life. I will say this, if you love him, he won't refuse you anything. The Uzumaki clan needs to be rebuilt and Lady Kushina is struggling to talk to him about what will be necessary. Tsunami aired an eyebrow and leaned toward Rias, and his eyes remained fixed on Inari frolicking in the ocean with Ruto. Please explain. Rias realized she may have overstepped and backpedaled a bit. Sorry, in due time. It isn't my place to tell. Let's just say our blonde hero will be busy. If you think he is the man for you and you don't mind sharing, go for it. Tsunami saw Ruto carrying a soaked Inari back to the house and decided to shelve the talk for later. This isn't over, young lady. Rias winked before walking off of the porch and meeting the duo in front of the porch. Tsunami watched Ruto use some wind jutsu, or whatever the shinobi called it, to dry Inari off rapidly. The child squealed happily at the sensation before Ruto set him down and he gave his mother a big hug. Ka-chan. Ruto is back. The grin Inari was wearing was splitting his face and it filled Tsunami's heart with a warm tingly feeling. Indeed, Inari-chan, he is. Now, Ruto-kun, to what do we owe the pleasure? Tsunami asked as she remained leaned against the post of the porch. Ruto looked up and gulped at the beautiful, shapely, motherly figure. Tsunami's blue hair was tucked up into a loose ponytail and it framed her heart-shaped face. She was wearing a white tank top and blue jeans that hugged her shapely figure. Hikari snickered at his reaction from inside the seal and caused him to blush further beneath his mask. Tsunami-san, Lady Sheena and the Raikage have nominated me as the emissary to Wave Country and we wish to offer our input into the rebuilding of Wave. Sadly, your relationship to us may have implications for Wave's future and we want to help prepare you and the people of this beautiful country. He replied professionally. Tsunami frowned slightly at the san honorific attached to her name but realized that it was because Ruto was in his professional mode. Very well, Ruto-kun, please come in and we can discuss things. Tsunami didn't let her Laura's daimyo get to her head. She still managed her kitchen and prepared the tea before she dismissed 2 attendants that were assigned to aid her in her duties. She served the tea to her guests and watched as Ruto casually flipped through a couple hand signs before placing his palms on the wall of the house. She watched blue flickers of light race around her house before the whole house was encompassed in the bluish light. The light snuffed itself out of existence and Ruto removed his mask before he sighed contentedly and began to sip on the tea. Once again, a fierce blush found its way to Tsunami's cheeks as she took in the cute, yet manly, face of Naruto. Naruto set his cup down and relaxed back into the wooden chair. Okay, Tsunami-san, I am here to introduce myself as the emissary to Kumo and Azushiogacore. The rebuilding of Azu is nearly complete and Kumo intends to use Azu as an intermediary. What you don't know is that this will draw attention from people around the nations, especially once they figure out Azushio has been rebuilt. Before anybody can take advantage of you, the Raikage and my mother asked me to come here and help you iron out some basic security measures. Well, I appreciate that Naruto-kun, but could you please drop the san stuff? I am new to this daimyo business, and I do not wish for the formality when it is just us. As for the unwanted attention, could you explain that to me? Naruto smiled at the lovely woman across the table. Sure thing, Tsunami-chan. Well, the history of Azu and its role in the shinobi world is a long story. After an hour or so of sharing the history of Azushiogacore, Naruto told Tsunami about how this would draw the attention of the Land of Fire and other unsavory figures. He explained how it would get worse once the world knew his family's true Idini, especially if they were able to link it to the invasion of Konoha. He had to explain the invasion of Konoha to Tsunami, which included the story of his childhood to justify Kumo's role in the invasion. Tsunami paid rapt attention to Naruto throughout his explanation. During the story of his childhood, she couldn't stop the hand that shot across the table to offer her love and concern as she placed it on his much larger hand. To her delight, Naruto's hand shifted naturally and accepted her dainty hand. She continued to listen as their fingers intertwined and Naruto's thumb rubbed affectionately across the top of her hand. Thank you for sharing your story with me, Naruto-kun. That explains a lot and I will convene the newly elected Wave Council to share your concerns with them. Will you be staying with us in the meantime? If you will have us, we would love to accept your hospitality. Naruto replied naturally. Naruto spent 3 weeks in Wave helping to plan out Wave's defenses. One of the first things he did was to place screening seals on the bridge. Dual guard shacks were also built on each end of the bridge for added security and many plans were formed. The biggest project was setting up barriers around the ports, around each village on the island and any important area Tsunami designated. The Raikage offered his help rebuilding Wave and he signed a 3-year contract to hire Kumo shinobi for security. 20 Kumo shinobi would rotate through security duties and offer their assistance in rebuilding Wave as they were stationed there. In addition, a port would be built on the northwest side of the island for Kumo and Azu ships to use exclusively. They would use this new location to import goods from Kumo, allow for transportation of Kaminari no Kuni civilians and shinobi, and also allow for a direct link to Azushio. This port would have a higher security level than the ports near the Land of Fire, and Tsunami would be responsible for screening the dockworkers. I didn't want to broadcast Kumo's involvement in the island nation to Fire Country, and Tsunami agreed to that. A long-term plan was also laid out to establish a land bridge with a two-way train to link Azushio to Wave's main island. This would take nearly a decade to complete, and both nations needed to secure funding, but the idea was to incorporate Wave into the new Azu. Tazuna was jumping at the chance to one-up his previous creation, and he was already drawing out blueprints. Naruto spent many nights sipping sake with him as he asked questions on the capabilities of shinobi and how they could assist with the bridge's construction. The young blonde hero created hundreds of his clones every day that ran around the island helping people. It was an amazing workforce and only served to secure his lure as the hero of Wave. Every person in Wave was grateful for him, and they gave him their trust readily. In return, Naruto asked for the discretion when talking about him in public. During a town hall, Ruto revealed how people were likely to come to Wave and probe for information. He discussed the implications of information being revealed too soon and asked for the discretion, which they readily agreed to. During that town hall, Ruto told them that Kumo would fund a new school on the island and that applications for the Ninja Academy would be accepted. It wasn't disclosed where the Ninja Academy would be, only that their children would be safe for the duration of their ninja education. Many of the poor citizens saw this as a way to earn a better living and were excited to send their children, but they were forced to rethink things when Naruto laid out the standards for acceptance into the academy. Azu Academy standards were high, and the children of Wave would need substantial supplementary education before they could realistically begin attending Azu's Shinobi Academy. Inari was the first Wave Islander to be accepted into the Azu Academy, and he would start in the first year there in a couple months. Naruto spent a couple hours screening children that wished to apply along with a couple of adults that wanted training to protect their homeland. Rather than send the adults to Azu, Naruto informed them that the shinobi stationed in Wave will conduct classes for the populace. Naruto found out that day that a large number of Wave citizens would be attending the public classes because they had all resolved never to let themselves be pushed around again. For all of the assistance, Wave Country agreed to pay back Kumo and Azu over the next 20 years. Azu's name was not listed on the contract because Ruto didn't trust all of the new counselors on the Wave Council, but if chakra was applied to the seal on the bottom of the original copy, then Azu's name could be seen. This was a simple nation that was shielded from the shinobi world from the most part, and Ruto knew that shinobi spies would set their sights on Wave soon. This small and young nation wasn't ready to defend itself against such threats, so Naruto knew that it was his duty to protect Azu's secrets and interest. Overall, the council would do anything within reason that Kumo requested, and in return Kumo provided assistance and security. Throughout the weeks, Tsunami grew closer to Naruto, and she grew more irritated with her father for taking so much of Naruto's time. She shooed Tazuna off by sending him to the town for a grocery run in order to get some alone time with our intrepid blonde. Tsunami had hesitated to reveal her feelings to Naruto, but he hadn't missed the signals. With 5 days left in his planned stay in Wave, Tsunami finally worked up the courage to make her move. She began by sending Inari to a friend's house, giving her father money to go to the bars, bribing Rias, and cooking a wonderful meal. Naruto returned to the house that night to find it empty with the table set for two and lit with candles. He smiled as Tsunami welcomed him home with a hug. His smile grew when he saw the candlelit table set for two, and Hikari closed the connection to give him some privacy. She remained in a half-asleep and content state until she heard the door to the house crash open and Inari's voice filled the house. The excited boy ran straight to his mother's room since he didn't see her in the kitchen or outside. Inari froze when he opened the door to his mother's room and saw Naruto with a deer-in-the-headlights look on his face while holding his clothes. His mother was wrapped in her bedsheets and blushing furiously while Inari was confused. "You wanna talk about it, cuz?" He opened up casually. Rias initially stiffened at the contact but was unable to stop herself from leaning into his warmth. She sighed, "I don't know, Ruto. I don't know what or how I am supposed to feel." Naruto was confused, but he pulled her closer and leaned his head on hers. Okay, we can just sit here then and enjoy the sunset. I want you to know that I care about you, and you will always be family. Rias whimpered as a tear fell from her eye. Is that all I will ever be to you? At Naruto's confused feel and grunt, she elaborated. I don't know if you know this, but each of your adopted sisters loves you. Not just like a brother, but actual love. Tayuya is really the only one that sees you like a true brother because you two grew up together. Even she would be willing to give up Archoy if it meant she could share your love. Naruto gasped at that. He would never want that. Look, Rias, I don't want Tayuya to break up something good. I know that Mom talked about the purity of the Uzumaki bloodlines, and I am coming around to the idea, but I would never want to stop you girls from finding true love. Rias turned her head and put both her hands on Naruto's cheeks before forcing him to look her in the eye. What if my true love is you? Naruto's deep azure blues softened as he processed the thinly veiled tears and sense of desperation, and a contemplative look fixed itself on his face. Maybe now, but what if you find a great guy in the future? You will always be someone special to me, but I don't want you to close your heart to others. I already have more women than I deserve. Rias' tone gained a ferocity that caught Naruto off guard. Isn't that for us girls to decide? You don't know what a good guy you are, Ruto-kun. You saved me when I was broken by Gato, and you gave me a home and a family. You are something truly unique in this world, and I would be happy with a small piece of your heart. Please, Ruto. Rias' eyes glistened with unfallen tears in the sunset and her face looked like the vision of beauty. I don't know where this will go from here, but I want you to know you are already in my heart, Rias-chan, and you are not broken. That being said, I only have a couple days left with Tsunami-chan and I don't want to be disrespectful to her in her own house. For now, can you wait until we get home? Rias smiled beautifully at him and replaced her head on his shoulder. The two watched the sunset over the ocean horizon and enjoyed the beauty of the land of waves. Tsunami saw the two out of the kitchen window and a contented smile fixed itself on her face. She thought she would be more jealous seeing Naruto with another woman after claiming him, but it surprisingly didn't bother her. She continued to watch Naruto display a love and tenderness that one wouldn't expect from such a big and powerful man until she retired to the living room to enjoy the fire and a bottle of sake. 1 year later, the year passed in a flash for the Maki, Uchimaki and other shinobi that left Konoha. If one were to take a peek at the world news, it may look something like this. The Maki clan started selling seals in bulk outside of Kumo. The Maki clan accepted sealing contracts in countries allied to Kumo, which included Wave, Kiri and Am. They had been stonewalling requests from Konoha but have provided services to the Fire Daimyo at a premium price. With the growth of the clan and the increased proficiency at Kumo's overall fuinjutsu, mass production of seals became Kumo's main export. They used Wave Country as a distribution point for Kiri and Konoha while they set up a trading post on Kumo's border with Iwa. The Maki Sealing Corporation used Wave because Tsunami had taken over the remnants of Gato shipping and Wave Country was at a perfect spot in the elemental oceans since it linked Kiri, Azushio, Kumo and Fire Country. Wave Country accepted Kumo's aid in setting up a shinobi and samurai presence on the island nation due to the increased attention the country was getting. A small side note for Wave Country, the Maki family agreed to let Naruto fulfill Tsunami's request. After a couple passion-filled nights during Naruto's travels, Tsunami got her wish. Last month, Tsunami popped out a blonde baby with blue tips on his hair and Tsunami named him Kaisa. Inari was overjoyed and has insisted on calling Naruto his two-san since then. Naruto stopped by Wave every now and then, but the agreement with Tsunami was that she would be primarily responsible for raising the child. Naruto cared for her, but he had his duties to Kumo, Azu and Wave that required him to stay on his current path. The main seals that the Maki Corporation sold were quality-of-life seals, such as deployable barrier seals that were often equipped in caravans. With one seal, the caravan could erect a barrier that lasted 24 hours and the barrier automatically sent out an SOS to the nearest seal link. The daimyo of each nation were keenly interested in these, and they offered samurai response squads to cut down on highway crimes and bandits. Over time, these reforms were effective at reducing crime like highway robbery, which encouraged travel and stimulated the economy, which in turn made the daimyos richer. Another seal that sold like hot cakes was the anti-rape seal that Naruto and Kushina developed. This was a popular seal in every hidden village, and civilians around the elemental nations began keeping these on their person. The seal became a standard issue for every Kumo kunoichi due to its high success rate, and even more praise and notoriety was given to Ruto Maki. When the seals were activated by a small, civilian-level burst of chakra, the seal would emit an electric shock strong enough to incapacitate most attackers. If the seal were activated a second time, then a barrier would pop up around the distressed individual. The Makis were happy to help protect the women of the world from the most heinous act, and it brought international fame to the family. Other news in the Maki clan was the announcement of 4 marriages for the sole male of the clan, Ruto Maki. His fiancées were Mabui, Samui, Amy and Itachi, whose public alias was Chi. I believe that last name calls for a flashback no jutsu. Flashback. Itachi was getting incorporated into Kumo's force, and she was widely accepted for her prowess as one of Kumo's top kunoichi. She had already eclipsed Anko, and she was in line to challenge Yugito ni. Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan may have been a contributing factor to her success, but she did not overuse the dojutsu. Tsunade was monitoring her diminishing eyesight and had warned her multiple times about the risks of overuse. The plan for now, thanks to intelligence from Mikoto, was for her and Itachi to swap eyes soon. Anyway, Itachi was scheduled for a ranked match against Yugito ni, and she requested Naruto's aid in preparing for the match. On an informational note, Kumo developed a ranking system for its Chunin and Jonin shinobi. Once a month, those of 2 ranks lower could issue challenges to advance their overall rank in Kumo. I created this system to promote friendly compine and provide quality entertainment to the people of Kumo. The main rule for these matches was no killing to ensure that the compine remained positive rather than a tool for grudge matches. Due to the security seals, Kumo hasn't had to worry about spies, so I lets the people enjoy weekly exhibition matches at the stadium. It was so popular that people began making trips from the Lightning Capital if the event card were interesting enough. The number 1 spot belongs to Killer Bee still, since I deemed it fair for him to use Gyuki. Ruto then countered by saying he should be able to use his Fuinjutsu in matches, but I overruled him on that. Ruto occupied the number 2 spot and has fended off 12 challenges in the last year alone. Everyone wanted to take a shot at Ruto after his exhibition match with Hanzo to see how they stacked up and claim that they fought against the Tenshi no Raijin. One day, around 4 months after arriving in Kumo and spending a significant portion of her free time at the Maki compound, Itachi decided to be more direct with Naruto. After a rigorous training session, the two were relaxing in the private onsen with some sake. A couple sources in, a blushing Itachi used her liquid courage to bring up an old conversation. "Ano, Ruto-kun, do you happen to remember the last conversation we had before you fled from Konoha?" Itachi asked in a sheepish tone that was totally foreign to the normally composed Uchiha girl. Naruto pondered it for a little bit before he recalled the reminder that the girls gave him a couple months back. "Yeah, Itachi, I do. You will never know how much your friendship meant to me back then. And did you just, ano, me?" Itachi's blush deepened and she bought time by sipping more sake from her saucer. "Yeah, well, what do you think about it?" Now it was Naruto's turn to take an extra long sip of sake. "Well, I guess I would rather ask you why you took it so seriously. I have nothing against you, Itachi, you are a gorgeous and powerful kunoichi. I figured you could have had any man you wanted in the world, so why latch onto a childhood promise and why would you wish to marry me?" Itachi was sporting a blush that put the Hyugas to shame. I guess it was because you were the first boy I ever liked. Then, when you said it, you had the biggest and most genuine smile on your face and it kind of got stuck in my memory. Whenever I thought about my future, you were the one that popped into my fantasies. My mom always shared Kushina's letters with me, so I kinda kept tabs on you." Naruto raised an eyebrow. The beautiful and proud Itachi Uchiha kept tabs on little ol' me. "Yeah, well, don't let it get to your head, Barker. After you left, I graduated the following year and then I was in Anbu 2 years later. I stayed so busy that I never made time for love, but when I thought about it, your face and smile would always pop into my head. When my fool of a father promised me to the Hyuga, it made me sick, and your face was the one I thought of." "Well, thank you, sweetheart. That is sweet and I appreciate the sentiment. If I were to ask you what in the last 6 months confirmed your feelings, what would you say?" Itachi sighed. What is this, Ruto? 20 questions. Naruto held his hands up in mock defense. No, no, Sai. I just have 3 fiancés already, and that's not including Hikari-chan. Why would you want to share me when you could have any guy in Kumo? Itachi was getting frustrated now, so she crossed the onsen and pinned Naruto in with both arms and looked him straight in the eye. The coal-black eyes held a fragility that Naruto thought was foreign to the Uchiha. As black met azure blue, Naruto felt the now familiar feeling of souls linking up. Itachi kept creeping her face closer to his in a sensually slow manner, before she whispered. What if I don't want any guy in Kumo? What if I only want you, Ruto-kun? By the time Itachi finished asking the question, Itachi's lips were a mere inch from his and her hot breath crashed upon his whisker marks in a sensual manner. End of flashback. After Ruto officially proposed to Samui and Mabui, he decided that he would extend the same offer to Itachi. Naruto approached Mikoto over dinner and Mikoto and Kushina squealed like schoolgirls when their master plan came together. Naruto then took Itachi up to his favorite spot in Kumo, the roof of the Raikage Tower, and treated her to chocolate strawberries, stargazing and a fire ruby ring. The delicate mask that Itachi usually wore cracked completely and Naruto got a true glimpse of the beautiful and kind girl he remembered as a kid. The proposal to Itachi brought her to tears of happiness as her visage was framed by the sun setting over the clouds and mountains of Kumo. After she said yes and accepted the ring, Itachi snuggled into Naruto and enjoyed the beautiful scene. Michelangelo would have been entirely incapable of depicting the beauty of Mother Nature as the Maki and Uchimaki cuddled atop the Raikage's tower. That night was the first night that Itachi shared a bed with Naruto, it was the first night that she became one with a man and it was the first night of her life where she felt complete. Through liberal use of shadow clones, Naruto has been able to keep his girls happy. When Naruto is in town, the girls agreed to share the real him equally, but if they were being honest, cuddling with shadow clones wasn't so bad. The clones were so eager to please and they somehow possessed Naruto's warmth and ability to transition into their Hanyu forms. At nighttime, Ruto became a cuddle pillow to every girl in the house, yes, even Kin, Rias and Karen. There were even nights that Kushina wanted to cuddle into the softness of her Sochi's tails, so Ruto became accustomed to sending shadow clones in to cuddle with each girl every night he was in town. Outside of Naruto's love life, there have been a couple of international events worth reporting. First was the attack by a rogue group of ninjas on Takagakure. There were nearly 50% civilian casualties and over 80% shinobi casualties in Taki. Evidently, the attack force was led by one of their rogue ninjas, Kakazu, and he was accompanied by Kisame Hoshigaki, Hiden the Jashinist and multiple unidentified shinobi. The town was sacked and looted and their Jinchuriki is unaccounted for. The only information to come out of this attack was that Kakazu and Kisame were wearing black cloaks with red clouds, which incensed Nagato, Konan and Yahiko. Suna is no more. After the initial attack, the civilian population was evacuated, and the town has turned into a shinobi outpost. Most people speculate that Konoha is manning Suna, but the desert makes it hard to get information out. The city has been on lockdown and Konoha has been taking all mission requests from Kase no Kuni as a guise of recompense for the invasion. The militant nature of Konoha is concerning Iwa, Kumo and Kiri, but since their takeover could be seen as justified, nobody has done anything official about it. On top of Suna, Konoha has attempted to invade Otogakure, but the village has proven difficult to find and root out. The Snake-san and Orochimaru is still on the loose and Fugaku is still hell-bent on getting revenge, an ambition shared by his son. Speaking of Fugaku, he has taken multiple wives and concubines to restore the Uchiha clan. His primary wife was Mibuki Haruno, who helps him control the civilian side of the council. The man has lost support on the shinobi side of the council, but nobody stands in open defiance of him for fear of retaliation. The Hyuga clan had almost completely fallen from grace. Their old rivals, the Uchiha, used legislative measures to ensure that they would never rise in defiance. Fugaku worked with the elders to ensure that clan customs would be honored, and in return Fugaku got leniency from the Hyuga along with the political influence. Hinata had recovered from her beating at the hands of Tayuya and she purged all emotion following the deaths of her mother and sister. She had turned into the female version of her father and was set to marry her cousin Neji in order to maintain the purity of the Byakugan. In Azuchiogakure, The two Hyuga stowaways were working to establish themselves on the island. Hanabi trained alongside Gaara, Temari, Kankuro and a number of other shinobi that had come to the island recently. The Shinobi Academy was already up and running that everyone on the island attended 2 days a week for intro to Fuinjutsu. Even if they weren't Uzumakis by blood, the people of Azushio would honor their traditions and gain a mastery over Fuinjutsu that dwarfed modern standards. The Sand siblings were devastated when they heard about the fall of their home, but they were not surprised. Suna had committed over half of its shinobi force to the invasion of Konoha and it failed. Their sensei Baki had died in order to get a message to them that they should not return to the village anytime soon, which is why they sought shelter on Azu. They were committing themselves to getting stronger in order to carry on the traditions and legacy of Suna. Jiraiya's report. Jiraiya, the Toad Sannin, was the last remaining Sannin loyal to Konoha. He didn't much like serving Fugaku, but he believed in serving Konoha and right now his village needed him. Too much was changing on the world stage and most of it didn't bode well for Konoha. He was returning from a round of information gathering with his spy network and he knew that the Hokage wasn't going to like his most recent news. So, Jiraiya did what he always did when he had bad news to deliver, he stalled and went to peep at the hot springs. After a good amount of research and a healthy beating, Jiraiya brushed the dust off his haori and proceeded to the Hokage's office. One might be inclined to ask how a legendary Sannin known for his information-gathering prowess repeatedly gets caught peeking at women in the hot springs. If one forced an answer, Jiraiya would tell them that he deserves it for all of his failures in life. And it was totally awesome getting beaten by N or scantily clad women. Regardless, the Toad Sage had a report to give, and he had stalled long enough. Fugaku was mulling over recent developments in his office. Black Zetsu had detached from him a year ago and latched onto a white Zetsu in order to be his eyes in the field. There were an increasing number of cities that Zetsu could no longer enter without being discovered, which was greatly hindering the plant's information gathering. He was waiting on a report from Jiraiya to supplement his information and get a clearer picture of what exactly was going on in the elemental nations. As Fugaku was thinking about it, the long mane of white hair appeared on his windowsill. Instead of entering, Jiraiya reclined into the windowsill, and decided to give his report from there. He had an image to maintain, so he kept his tone casual yet professional. The Great Toad Sage reporting in, Hokage-sama. Fugaku turned and locked eyes with Jiraiya. I was expecting you here yesterday, but I have already received reports of your beating at the bath houses, so no need for an excuse. Let's hear your report. Not good, I'm afraid. I have failed to infiltrate Kumo multiple times. Each time I enter, I am discovered almost immediately and without fail. Based on that, I am guessing that my chakra signature is flagged and the only reason I am not dead or imprisoned is my Sannin status. The last attempt caused Kirinji to revoke my traveling rights in Kaminari no Kuni, which means if I am caught again, I will not be spared. Fugaku growled at this. How have they been able to reinforce their security so much in just 10 years? It is truly unbelievable what the Maki clan has done for that wretched nation. Well, you hit the nail on the head. During my travels through the towns of Lightning Country, I can tell you that each town is experiencing unprecedented growth and development. It used to be a barren landscape, but the land is developed now and tamed by earth jutsu. I saw multiple ninjas assisting everyday people with jutsus and the spread of seals throughout the country is fascinating. At this time, Kumo is Konoha's greatest threat, and it is not even a close contest. Fugaku sighed and rested his head on his hands. Yes, well, the non-aggression pact is holding, and they even helped us recover from the invasion. For now, they do not see us as a threat. What of the other countries? Well, I can confirm that I am allied with Kumo via a political marriage of Hanzo's daughter to Ruto Maki. That land was nearly impossible to infiltrate before and it appears that Kumo shared its defensive seals with Am. Same story for Wave and Kiri, although many islands in Mizu no Kuni do not have such protections. Tell me of Kiri, any news on the whereabouts of the Rokubi or Sanbi? What of their rebuilding efforts? This is the bad news. No new news on the Jinchuriki. It appears the Rokubi is still roaming throughout water country because it is not inside Kiri. Kiri appears to be getting substantial outside support in their rebuilding efforts. Most of that support is funneled through the Land of Waves, but there are whispers about Azushio Gakor being rebuilt. That island is locked down tighter than a princess chassis though, and I have had nobody capable of infiltrating the island. Then how did you hear of a zoo being rebuilt? Fugaku asked, clearly frustrated. Drunken sailors at a bar in water country. I tried probing further but they didn't have any more information than that. It does merit looking into, and it begs the question of why an old ally wouldn't contact us. Jiraiya said in his thinking pose. Very well, we will look into that further and discuss it at a later date. What of Iwa's Jinchuriki? Fugaku's tone sounded hopeful for a bit of positive news. Both of them are still roaming and are only protected by a squad of John and a piece. Han is in some mountain retreats, still haven't pinpointed him, but Roshi is up in the volcano. The old bastard is constantly hanging around lava, which would make him a real threat, even to your elite band of merry men. Fugaku let that stir around in his mind for a while. The volcano was in the heart of Iwa, and it wasn't far from Iwagakure, so reinforcements would be close by. Maybe a more underhanded approach could be used, thought Fugaku. He seemed to make up his mind before he asked his next question. What of the Jonin exams coming up in Iwa? Jiraiya seemed to perk up, since he actually had information on this topic. Well, it appears like Kumo has committed to sending a couple teams. Any guess which team will win it? Fugaku growled, the Divine Bolts with Ruto Maki. Yup. And that's not all. The Tsuchikage's granddaughter will be taking part as well. Rumors say that a team or two from Kiri will also take part, which would be interesting to see the caliber of shinobi coming from that war. Fugaku interlocked his fingers. It appears that we will need to send a team or two to represent. What happened to Tsunade? I find her betrayal in our time of need truly infuriating. Jiraiya looked hesitant to share the information, but at a stern look from Fugaku, he relented. Tsunade is indeed in Kumo. I don't know much more than that, but there were rumors of her helping many people from Kumo. If she is there, then Shizune Kaito is there with her. Fugaku growled, Kumo really does have their hands in everything. While we cannot afford to take direct action, I believe it is time for us to put our missing nin to the use, and these Jonin exams provide an opportunity. Who is your target? Jiraiya asked with a mix of interest and concern. Do not worry about such things, Jiraiya. Any updates on Oto? The old snake is as slippery as ever. We have taken out a couple bases and found a few more deserted ones. The daimyo of the land of rice paddies has denounced Orochimaru and give us passage on his lands. Us and Kumo, it would seem. What is Kumo's connection to that pathetic country? Fugaku asked. Well, the Divine Bolts helped him out of a jam before our Chunin exam fiasco. Then he was here during the finals and saw their performance, so he has been using them for most of his missions. Very well, Jiraiya, enjoy a week off then get back out into the field. I want you to focus on Iwa and Azu, we may be able to use those two to our advantage. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.